I will be presenting about biodiesel production. For question 1, biodiesel is produced through trans-esterification, where the triglycerides from oil react with the methanol in the presence of base catalysts such as sodium hydroxide. This reaction produces fatty acid methyl esters, which is biodiesel, and glycerol as a byproduct. The mixture then undergoes separation, where the glycerol settles at the bottom and the biodiesel remains on the top. The biodiesel is further washed to remove impurities like catalyst and soap, and then dried to remove any remaining water. Several operating parameters affect the yield. The methanol to oil ratio is typically 6:1 or 3:1 to drive the reaction forward. The temperature is maintained between 50 to 65 degrees Celsius, and the reaction time is about 1 to 2 hours. Proper mixing, usually around 600 to 1000 RPM, ensures good contact between immiscible reactants. Water content must be kept low, below 0.05%, and free fatty acid content below 0.5% to prevent soap formation, which reduces yield and complicates the separation. From an ethical perspective, the use of palm oil raises environmental concerns such as deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and greenhouse gas emissions. However, sustainable practices and certification as follows can help to mitigate these issues. For question 2, each unit operation has a specific function. The reactor is where the chemical reaction occurs. The separator divides the biodiesel and glycerol based on density differences. Washing removes the impurities such as residual catalysts, methanol, and soap, while drying removes the moisture to ensure the fuel quality. To reduce the waste, improvements such as methanol recovery and recycling, dry washing techniques, and the use of waste cooking oil can be implemented. Engineers also have a professional responsibility to manage glycerol properly by preventing environmental contamination, ensuring safe handling due to its impurities, complying with regulations, and converting it into useful products where possible. For question 3, the reaction mechanism involves the base catalyst forming a methoxide ion which attacks the carbonyl carbon of the triglyceride. This forms the intermediate that breaks down to produce a methyl ester and a diglyceride. This process repeats 3 times to ultimately form glycerol and 3 molecules of biodiesel. Structurally, triglycerides consist of a glycerol backbone attached to 3 fatty acid chains, while biodiesel has a simpler structure as follows. Finally, ethical considerations include ensuring worker safety. Methanol is toxic and flammable, and the catalyst is corrosive, so proper protection equipment, training, and safe operating conditions are very essential.
Assalamualaikum and good day to everyone. My name is Nur Azmina Hamiza binti Abdulham with metric number BS231100302. Now I will present question 2, which is oils and gas, which includes hydrogenation, oil refining, and saponification. First, hydrogenation is a process where unsaturated oil reacts with hydrogen gas using a nickel catalyst. In industry, this occurs in a reactor at about 150 to 200 degrees Celsius under high pressure, followed by cooling and filtration to remove catalyst. The final product is hydrogenated fat, which is semi-solid or solid product. Structurally, unsaturated fats contains carbon-carbon double bonds, giving a band shape. Hydrogenation converts these into single bonds, making the structure straight and more saturated with a higher melting point. However, partially, hydrogenation produces trans fats, which are harmful. Trans fats increase LDL and decreases HDL, raising the risk of heart disease and stroke. Therefore, industries must ensure clear labeling, honest marketing, and protect consumer health. Next, oil refining. This process improves oil quality and safety through 4 stages. First, degumming, which removes phospholipids. Second, neutralization, which removes free fatty acids using sodium hydroxide. Third, bleaching, which removes color and impurities using activated clay or carbon. Finally, deodorization, which removes odor using steam at high pressure under vacuum. The process flow is crude oil going through degumming, then going through neutralization, and then onto bleaching, then deodorization, and finally the refined oil. Industries must ensure food safety by removing contaminants, maintaining hygiene, applying quality control, and providing accurate information to consumers. Now, last but not least, saponification. Saponification is the reaction between fat and sodium hydroxide to produce soap and glycerol. Soap molecules have a hydrophobic tail that attracts oil and hydrophilic head that attracts water. They form micelles which trap grease and allow it to be washed away. However, this process produces alkaline wastewater which can harm the environment. Therefore, industries must treat and neutralize waste, monitor pollution, and follow environmental regulations. In conclusion, oils and fats processing improves good product quality, but industries must also consider health, safety, and environmental responsibility. That's all from me. Thank you.
I'm going to explain for the question manufacturing pulps and paper. Question 1 is explain each stage of the process. First, I will explain the craft process, which is commonly used to produce pulp. The process starts with the wood chip, where logs are cut into small pieces to increase the surface area. Next, in the digester, the wood chips are cooled with sodium hydroxide and sodium sulfide under high temperature and pressure. This removes lignin, which bind the fiber together and release the cellulose fiber to the form pulps. After that, the pulps is washed to remove the impurities and leftover chemicals. Then bleaching is carried out to remove remaining lignin and improve the brightness of the pulps. Finally, the pulp is pressed and dried to form paper. For question B, the flow diagram, the first flow is wood chip, digester, washing, bleaching, and paper formation. For question C, issue, this process can cause water pollution, air pollution, and deforestation. Therefore, industry must treat waste properly, reduce the emission, and practice sustainable forestry. Now move on to the question 2, which is explain the chemical reaction involved. In bleaching, chemicals such as chlorine dioxide and hydrogen peroxide are used to remove the remaining lignin. These chemicals break lignin into smaller compounds that can be washed away, produce the white pulps. Next is part B, compare different bleaching agent. Chlorine dioxide is a strong and effective but may produce harmful byproduct. Hydrogen peroxide is safer and more environmentally friendly but less powerful. Next, question C, which is discuss ethical issue regarding the issue of hazardous chemical. Industry must ensure the safe handling of chemicals, protect workers, and reduce the environmental impact. Now, process to the question 3. For A, explain each stage of the process. The processing step include log chipping, pulping, screening, and drying. Chipping reduce the size of the wood. Pulping separate the cellulose fiber. Screening remove the impurities, and drying remove the moisture. For question B, chemical recovery system, and this is the sketch. Chemicals from black liquid are recovered and reused in the process. This reduces the cost and minimize the environmental pollution. Now for question C, discuss the professional responsibility and sustainable forestry practice. Okay, industry must control logging, replant the trees, and protect ecosystem to ensure the sustainable forestry. Now I will explain the review of cocoa, which include the cocoa process, cocoa butter production, and the Maillard reaction. First, for question 1, cocoa processing. The process begins with the cocoa beans, which are harvested from the cocoa pods. After harvesting, the beans are removed from the pods and undergo the fermentation. During the fermentation, microorganisms such as yeast, bacteria breaks down the sugar into pulps surrounding the beans. This process generates the heat and helps develop important flavor precursors that will later contribute to the taste of the chocolates. Next, the beans are dried, usually under the sunlight. Drying reduces the moisture content, which are important to prevent the spoilage and microbial growth during the storage and transportation. After drying, the beans are roasted. Roasted is a very important step because it enhances the flavor, aroma, and the color of the cocoa beans. During this stage, chemical reactions such as the Maillard reaction occur, which contribute to the characteristic chocolate flavor. Then, roasted beans are ground into a thick paste called cocoa liquor. This cocoa liquor contains both cocoa solid and the cocoa butter, and it serves as the base material for producing chocolate and the other cocoa production. Next is the question 2. The process flow can be summarized as a cocoa bean, then fermentation, then drying, next roasting, next grinding, and finally cocoa liquor is the product. Each step is important because it clearly develops the final quality, flavor, and the texture of the cocoa product. Now we move to the question C. However, there are ethical issues in the cocoa industry, especially related to labor practice. These include child labor, low wages, and the poor working condition in some cocoa producing region. Therefore, companies have a responsibility to ensure the fair trade practice, provide the fair wages, and maintain safe and ethical working environments for the farmers and the workers. Next, question 2, cocoa butter production. Cocoa butter is produced from the cocoa liquor through a pressing process. In this step, high pressure is applied to the cocoa liquor to separate it into two components. The liquid part is a cocoa butter, which is a type of fat, while the solid part is the cocoa cake, which can later be processed into cocoa powder. This separation is important because cocoa butter is widely used in chocolate manufacturing as well as the cosmetic and pharmaceutical product. For question B, from a chemical perspective, cocoa butter mainly consists of triglycerides. A triglyceride is a molecule made of one glycerol backbone bonded to 3 fatty acids. In cocoa butter, the common fatty acids include the palmitic acid, stearic acid, and oleic acid. This structure is important because it gives cocoa butter its unique melting properties, which allow cocoa to melt smoothly in the mouth. For question C, in terms of industry responsibility, manufacturers must ensure the product quality by maintaining proper hygiene during the processing, preventing contamination, and following strict food safety standards. This must also ensure the consistency in taste, texture, and overall quality so that the final product meet consumer expectation. Finally, question 3, the Maillard reaction. The Maillard reaction is a chemical reaction between amino acid and reducing sugar that occur when food is heated. This reaction is responsible for the producing flavor, aroma, and the brown color in the many food, including the chocolate, coffee, and baked product. In cocoa processing, it mainly occurs during the roasting stage. Next is question C. The mechanism of the Maillard reaction involves several steps. It begins with a condensation reaction between an amino acid and a reducing sugar, forming a glycosylamine. This is followed by a formation of a Schiff base, which then undergo an Amadori rearrangement to form a more stable intermediate. This intermediate further break down into reaction compounds such as aldehyde and ketone, which eventually form complex flavor compounds and brown pigment known as melanoidins. Finally, question C. However, when it comes to the food additive, there are important ethical considerations. Industry must ensure that all additives used are safe, properly tested, and approved by the regulator authorities. This must also provide a clear and accurate labeling so the consumer are aware of what they are consuming. In addition, companies should avoid the misleading claims and consider the long-term health effect and environmental impact of the additive use.
Good day and hello. In this slide, I present the drug productions. In question A, explain the each stage. So raw material is the sourcing and testing active pharmaceutical ingredients. Next is reactions, the chemical synthesis or biological process where the drug molecule is created. Third is formulations, where are the mixing the active drugs with other substance to create the final dosage forms. Lastly is drug products. This is the final package medication ready for distributions. So in B, drying process, which is explained in A. C, ethical considerations in clinical trials. This involve ensuring informed consents, protecting participant safety, and maintaining data integrity to ensure the drugs efficiency and safety are honestly reported. In this slide is about the aspirin synthesis. So A, reaction mechanism. The synthesis of aspirin is an esterification reaction. The hydroxy group on the salicylic acid rich with the acetate anhydrates and an acid catalyst, usually a sulfuric acid, protonates the acetate anhydrates, making it more susceptible to nucleophilic attack by the oxygen atoms of the salicylic acid phenyl groups. This results in the substitution of the hydrogen atom with an acetic groups, yielding aspirin and acetic acid as a byproduct. B. The structure consists of benzene ring with two functional groups attached to adjacent carbons, orthopositions, which is a carboxylic acid group and an ester group. C. What is the importance of quality control? So, the quality control is prevent contaminations from toxic byproduct or unreacted salicylic acid. Second is consistency, which is ensure every table have this exact doses required for efficiency. Third is stability. Confirm the drugs remain safe and effective until its expiration. In this slide is about the GMP, which is good manufacturing practice. So, what is the concept of GMP? GMP is the system designed to ensure that pharmaceutical products are consistently produced and controlled according to the quality standards. It covers all the aspects of the production, from the starting material and premise to the training and personal hygiene to the staff. B. I already sketched the quality control, which is concept of machine, manual checking, internal audit, and customer feedback. C. The professional responsibility in ensuring drug safety. Firstly is accountability. Professional must ensure that all processes adhere strictly to validated protocols. Second is transparency. Any deviations in the production process must be documented and investigated immediately. Third is public health protections. The primary duty is to the patients, ensuring that no substandard of falsifiers medicines enter the distribution. This slide is about the dye pigments and pen. So in question 1 is the ozone dye synthesis. A is we explain the synthesis step, which is diazotization, which is a primary aromatic amide, which with the nitrous acid generate from the NaNO2 and HCl at the low temperature, which is 0 to 5 Celsius, to form a diazonium salt. Second is coupling reaction. The diazonium salt acts as an electrophile and rich with an activates aromatic compound like a phenol or another amine to form like a stable ozone leakage. So in B, the structure and ozone dye. The general structure is represented as the AR and NAR. It consists of two aromatic rings linked by the ozone group, which acts as the chromophore responsible for the dye color. So what is the environment pollution issue? So first thing is the water toxicity. So the discharge of untreated dye influence in water bodies blocks the sunlight, affecting the photosynthesis in aquatic plants. Second is a carcinogen byproduct. Some ozone dyes can break down into aromatic amines which are known to be toxic or carcinogen to human and wildlife. Lastly is high chemical oxygen demands. The presence of these organic compounds in wastewater significantly reduce dissolved oxygen level in river. Question 2 is about the pen productions. So explain the function of each component. Pigment is provided color, opacity, and sometimes corrosion resistant to the pen. Binding, the glue that hold the pigment particles together and ensure the pen adheres to the surface. Solvent is act as a carrier to adjust the viscosity of the pen for the easy applications. It evaporates as the pen dries. So and B is the process of diagram. Firstly is pre-mixing. Pre-mixing, which is the pigment are mixed with a binder and solvent. Second step is grading or miling, which need to pass through a mile to break down the pigment into fine particle size. Third is final mixing, which need to achieve final viscosity and color match. Lastly is filtrations and packaging, where needed to remove the impurities and then label and can. So in question C is ethical issue, which is related to the organic solvent volatile organic compounds. Many organic solvents contribute to air pollution and smoke formations. Long-term health risks, which is continuous exposure to solvent vapor, can lead to the respiratory issue or neurological damage for worker. Second is a sustainability. There is an ethical push for industrials to transitions from solvent-based to water-based coatings to reduce the environment's footprint. Question 3 is coating process. In A is explain the drying mechanism. So firstly is physical drying, which is evaporation, where the liquid carrier, solvent or water evaporate into the surrounding air. Second is chemical curing, which is a cross-linking and polymerizations. So in this mechanism, a chemical reaction takes place to form the solid. So lastly is coalescence. This is the specific to water-based emulsions, paints like a latex or acrylics. As water evaporates, spherical polymer particles are forced tightly together. So in B is compare the water-based and the solvent-based paints. So in water-based, in primary is water, while the solvent-based is organic solvent such as xylem. So outdoor in the water-based is mild and low odor, while the solvent-based is strong pungent chemical and strong odor. And lastly is the environment impact of volatile organic compounds, where in water-based is low VOC emissions because the environment is more friendly, while the solvent-based is high VOC emission which contribute to air pollution and smoke formations. So in C is the health impact on worker. Exposure to volatile organic compounds. Inhalations of evaporating organic solvent can cause the acute short-term effects such as disease, headache, nausea, and irritation of eyes, nose, and throats. Long-term symptomatic damage is chronic long-term inhalation of harsh solvent like benzene or toluene derivative can lead to a severe central nervous system depression, respiratory issue like occupations, asthma, and damage to the liver and kidney. Some specific solvent and lagency pigments containing a heavy metal like lead and chromium are non-carcinogens. Lastly is dermal, which is skin contact. Direct contact with liquid, pen, solvent, and harders like epoxy resins can cause the contact dermatitis or severe skin irritations and chemical results. Question 7 is about the organic chemistry for fine chemicals. So in question 1 is fine chemical synthesis. What is the importance of purity? Importance of purity is to preventing the site reaction. Even the trace impurities can interfere with the subsequent reaction step, causing the low yields or dangerous site reactions. Second is safety and efficacy. In pharmaceuticals, and impurity can be highly toxic or alter the therapeutic effect of the drugs, endangering the patient health. Lastly is regulatory compliance, which regulatory bodies like the FDA enforce the strict purity standards. With the purity standard GMP, failing to meet these standards result in discharged batch and massive financial loss. So B is about the process diagram. In step 1 is a starting material with the needs a raw chemical and solvent are precisely measured and introduced to the system. Step 2 is a multi-step reactions, which strictly control temperature, pressure, agitations, and catalysis. Step 3 is the purifications, with separations of target molecule from byproduct via crystallizations. The final step is the fine chemical, where the needed a dry chemical powder is ready for packaging. So in C is an ethical issue. in balancing cost and quality. So in industry, there is a constant pressure to maximize profits by reducing costs. The ethical dilemma rise when a cost cutting compromise with quality and safety of the fine chemical. For example, a company might be tempted to skip a costly purification step or use the cheaper, lower grade starting materials. So, as a chemical engineers, the professionals called for ethics mandates for prioritizing public health, safety, and welfare above corporate profession. Two is acidifications. A is the reaction mechanism. So, firstly is protonations. The acid catalyst usually the sulfuric acid protonates the carbonyl oxygen of carboxylic acid, making the carbonic carbon much more electrophilic. So second is nucleophilic attacks. The oxygen atom of alcohol attacks the electrophilic carbonyl carbon forming a tetrahedral intermediates. Thirdly is proton transfer, where a proton is transferred from the newly attached alcohol group to one of the hydroxy groups. So next is eliminations, where the water molecule leaves and the carbonyl double bond reforms. Lastly is the protonations, which is the molecule lose a proton to regenerate the acid catalyst, yielding the final ester. In B is the ester structure, which is derived from the carboxylic acid and alcohol, where a carbonyl group bonded to an oxygen atom that is further linked to an alkyl or arene groups. Lastly, in C is the importance of process control, which is first is equilibrium control, which is to drive direction to the right, which is maximize the ester productions. Process control is needed to continuously remove the byproducts through the distillation or to maintain a high excess of the cheaper reactor. Second is temperature control. The reaction requires heat to proceed, and a variable rate but excessive heat can cause the volatile alcohol to boil off or lead to unwanted side reactions. So in this last slide is the industrial process. A is the difference between the batch and continuous process. So batch process is a reactant are loaded into a closed reactor all at once. The reaction occurs over a specific time under the control conditions, and the product is discharged at the end. It is highly flexible and ideal for the producing a small volume of the high value complex for fine chemicals. So for the continuous process, where the reactant are continuously fed into the reactor and product are continuously withdrawn simultaneously, the process runs 24 hours without stopping. It is a highly efficiency and cost effective, but is generally reserved for large volume bulk chemical production where the flexible is not needed. So in B is the process flow diagram. Step 1 is the batch reactor, where the reactor are loaded, heated, and agitated to complete the chemical transformation. In step 2 is the separation, is where the solid products catalyzed are physically insulated from the liquid. Step 3 is drying, where the application of heat or vacuum to evaporate the remaining solvent. The final is packaging, where the purified chemical is measured and sealed in the bags. So last question is the professional responsibility in process safety. In first is thermal hazard. Batch reactor are prone to the thermal runaway if an exothermic reaction is not properly cooled, which can lead to the catastrophic explosions. B is responsibility. Chemical engineers have a professional responsibility to design and implement rigorous safety system. This includes installing pressure relief valves, emergency cooling jackets, and automated shutdown system. Engineer must also conduct throughout the hazard analysis like the HAZOP and ensure that the plant operators are fully trained and protected, ensuring the safety of the workforce and the surrounding community. So that's all from me. Thank you.